coming in live with the Cretelife Podcast from foggy Indianapolis, Indiana, on this beautiful day, December 30th, year of our Lord 2021. Your host here, Will Mattingly, creator of Flatwork Kings, and my co-host, Phil Laraway, resident fact checker and co-host.
Good morning.
Good morning, Phil. We also have a guest here with us today, Nate Glad from Mattingly Concrete, here to share a little bit about his story. We're going to get right into it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Nate, tell us a little bit about your current role at the company and what your typical day looks like.
Current role, director of operations, so I'm managing the day-to-day as far as everything goes. In any given day, all you got to do is direct traffic. Sometimes you are a little bit of a sitter for many different moving parts. I think anybody that works in the industry could agree that you have to change things on a fly. I've been able to improvise and delegate many different things over the course of, I think, 6 years now. I think that's what really has actually been able to help me excel a little bit. But I consider myself more of a leader than a manager, I guess. So
that's really good. Yeah, I like that. I like the leadership that you brought up because I think you could probably agree. Some people see you more in that light than a boss. It's always nice when you don't have that problem on your hands. But I'd like to dig in a little bit more. What were the early days like for you? What sparked your interest in kind of having more than one fire going at a time? Because that's not something that everybody's cut out for.
Well, I think naturally, just human nature, you want more. You always want to strive to make the best out of yourselves. And I was in a slump at the place where I was at. I was struggling to get advancement opportunity, and I kind of reached out to new companies to see what could be done. Mm-hmm. If we're going to go way back, originally I joined the company just on a one-day trial.
This was Mattingly Concrete.
Correct.
1 day trial.
Yeah, a 1 day trial on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Which was actually, a lot different than what I currently do. It was
you were there to help labor.
Physically in the mud, as you call it. But
yeah, day one, just jump right in on a pour, huh?
Yeah, I gave it a little bit of a try, and I think I was a little scrawny at the time, so it didn't really work out too well, but oddly enough, I did that 1 day and didn't really hear back or anything, which
you didn't hear back. Yeah, that was
fine and dandy, but the things ended up changing for where I was working, and I ended up getting a leadership role in my existing job. So I kind of just shied away from it. And then 3 years after that trial, I believe it was Mr. Sargent reached out to me looking for somebody that actually could oversee many different moving parts. I had some different customer experience background, and then, like I said, the position that I took over at the employer before was overseeing a very large department of a warehouse.
How many people were you overseeing then? Like 50 or something there at the warehouse?
Yeah, there's 50 per shift. So, in a warehouse, depending on what it is that they do, you've got shifts that also overlap. So you could be overseeing 30 people from the first shift and then 20 people from the second shift. But in any given hour, you try to keep the department full with 50 people.
So from the get-go, you had a lot, you're used to having a lot going on. And, using those kind of skills from your previous employer, you were able to actually put toward.
I don't think it's from the get-go. I think that all that stuff comes to you with time, and you have to actually be able to look at yourself and figure out how are you going to make yourself better. Again, I wanted the opportunity, to try to do more than just a mundane, repetitive job at this warehouse where I was at.
That's interesting. Yeah, if you want it and if you have the ability to do it, those are two different things, right? So in your position now, how do you how do you see yourself implementing those opportunities for, say, like a new laborer that comes in for that first day trial? You know, what kind of hope do they have under your control, you know, years down the line? You know, is there an image that person could put in their mind, like, you know, wow, I've got a ladder I could climb here? Or is that in progress? Are you working on that kind of thing?
Well, with anybody that is under your umbrella, you have to think more about coaching. You don't think about directing or anything like that. I mean, yeah, you want to direct the big picture of what it is that, again, I'm operations, so the day-to-day operations, but with each individual person, you kind of have to dissect a little bit and coach them in the direction that they want to see. Some people might not actually want more. You know, there could be people that are actually comfortable with just their, hey, I just want to work my 8 hours a day. I get my paycheck. I go home to see my family. But you start to learn things as you work with those people more and more. You see, hey, who is actually viable to move up a chain, or who says, hey, you know, I would really like to do more. So
Yeah.
coaching is more or less trying to tailor everything individually to each person.
That's a huge task. You know, when you run a lot of jobs like you do, I'm sure you're just, you know, there's times when you can feel overwhelmed. Is there a specific feather in your hat that you would say helps you, a tool in your chest, so to say, you know, that helps you manage what could be otherwise known as stress?
I don't know. I think
Do you have a routine that you kind of just try to follow or anything, or what?
I think it's unhealthy, but unfortunately, I have always considered myself to thrive in these stressful environments. So,
Yeah.
you know, any psychiatrist or anybody out there that you know studies that kind of stuff would probably say, yeah, you got a problem. But when things are going sideways, I think that's when I start to actually really excel a little bit, and it creates a lot more fun. So
Yeah. A lot of us like that, you know, that excitement of, you know, it's not mundane. Some people could see it as stress, and like you said, you know, maybe somebody doesn't want that responsibility of dealing with it. But, you know, there can be a lot that goes into that. And I think that, you know, in your career, you probably have seen a few different people handle it differently. Maybe, you know, maybe you see, have you tailored or coached your style to fit certain people as you're trying to bring them up and kind of get them to understand the bigger picture?
yeah, I would say, but I don't want everybody to. I'm not a firm believer in everybody following my systematic, you know, ways or anything like that. You have to foster their ideas, and they have to be comfortable doing things that the way that they want to do it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can show some guidelines to whoever it is, coordinators, crew leaders, field people, anything like that. I mean, but ultimately, I don't know the industry as well as some of those people out there. So I'm just kind of like I said, a coach that's saying, hey, here's some guidelines that I can give to you, but you still should do this stuff in your own manner.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You're the professional, and I'm this ultimately the director, and making sure that that there's a go-between between the customer and what's happening on the job. Is that kind of?
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And that's funny. The first day that I started, or the first week or something, you know, and the company was very small and still about 6-7 people or something like that, maybe a little more. But some of the veterans, you know, approached me and they said, "Hey, I don't want you to tell me how I'm supposed to do these things. You know, this is my area. I know how to build these things." And I had to quickly, you know, pull certain people to the side and say, "Hey, look, you know, I'm here ultimately to make your life a little bit easier. I'm not here to tell you how to build certain things or tell you how to do various different aspects of your job. I'm just here to be the point of contact between you, the customer, and the company." So,
yeah.
So that's where I started, was kind of the customer communication.
Yeah. And you've since built out that department, it sounds like, you know, I mean, that's, you know, now we have these departments in the company, whether it's sales or project management based or crew leaders or mechanical or safety, et cetera, but specifically in the project management sector, what kind of guidelines were you given at first versus what you might be able to present to a new project manager?
Yeah, I was told collect checks, don't admit when anything looks out of line,
Oh, gee.
and just keep high correspondence with each customer and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but I had some customer experience, which I was actually very bad at from a car dealership back in the day, and I think I was fired twice for being a customer service representative in the automotive industry. I was young though; I think it was 18 or something like that. So that was but it got my foot in the door.
Got your foot in the door with dealing with customers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And people who might be upset by things that you couldn't control, or et cetera, et cetera. Those are things we deal with a lot in concrete, right?
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
like half of it's in our control. The other half is, whether it cracks here or there, or how the sun comes out at different times, or et cetera, the weather. Those are all things that can be tough to explain, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, but I think the deal is you have to explain it.
Yeah.
So that's where I would really separate what it was once and what it is since I've taken it over. Is I can't speak for people in the position before, but I feel like maybe there was a little bit less emphasis on, hey, these are our customers. We need to make sure that we're keeping them updated every step of the way. Now I'm encouraging my guys, and again, sometimes it doesn't happen full out. People have their own ways of doing things. They might send emails versus phone calls, but I encourage anybody that's in the project coordinating position, whether with Mattingly or any other company, I guess, too, the more that you can actually set the expectations or get in contact with your people. I've had customers that have literally said, hey, stop calling me and just let me know when the project's finished.
These are homeowners.
Homeowners, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just kind of ran with it where I was updating these people, these customers, homeowners, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Once in the morning, hey, we're getting started, and then you give them an afternoon update, and you call them at the end of the day again. And
so you can never over communicate.
That's what I would say. If you over communicate to the point where people are like, yo, hey, you could probably ease up on calling me this 4th time for the day or something like that, then you're doing something right. You say, hey, okay, you know what? I'll give you a call when the project's done and we can discuss things from there. But that's
a fair warning that you give. So in case they say, why didn't you tell me this? Well,
yeah.
Yeah, it's an expectation within an expectation almost. It's
Right.
3D chess. I like that. So, yeah, with homeowners specifically, or those that might be listening dealing with homeowners, that is that's a big ball of mush we can get into. You could go on for days about that topic, but specifically with homeowners and with residential projects, what does that typically look like when they get signed up and the project's getting close? When would a good project manager, what does that flow look like for that upcoming project?
In our industry, in concrete, or just really anything that has to do with home renovations, I would say 2 weeks, a starting point to actually reach out to a customer. Within a week or two, the customers are generally thinking about their date that's been scheduled. They're saying, hey, these guys are going to get started. So if you meet with them a few weeks prior, 1 to 2 weeks, talk to them about the expectations, what's going to happen. That's generally what I'm reaching for, is about a 2-week prior meeting, phone call. Sometimes it's tough to get people actually on the line, so you might have to send a follow-up email or something along the lines like that too.
Yeah.
But rule of thumb, I would say 2 weeks you reach out to people prior, your homeowners, just so that they're actually starting to check the boxes in their mind. Okay, I'm preparing for this, I'm preparing for that, I'm moving my furniture off of my patio, or hey, let's talk about the shape that I'm wanting. Mm-hmm. We deal a lot with decorative type stuff. If you're reaching out to customers the day before and they haven't actually selected
Their
a
shape
stamp
or
or anything like that, or colors of what kind of patios they want, then that's just creating more of a headache on yourself.
yeah, that really plays into that stress word we were talking about earlier for sure.
And it makes it makes things so much easier on you when you actually can approach these people, like I said, 2 weeks prior, and start kind of saying, "Hey, let's talk about this. Hey, let's talk about this, and be prepared for this." And
Yeah. So each day you're looking out 2 weeks. So if today's Thursday, you're looking at 2 weeks from now Thursday. If you're doing it by the book.
generally, yeah, and 2 weeks is when I'm actually making a call. I give them a rundown and say, "This is what's going to happen. Hey, it looks like you've selected these colors, or you have not selected these things. Let's discuss where you guys need to go to find these selections." Then about a week prior, so like you said, today's Thursday, you call 2 weeks, which would be the second week of January. Then next week, I would be actually visiting the job site.
Okay. So there's a little bit of a follow up. Yeah, you want to see the site before
Correct.
the
Yeah.
crew goes out there and is unprepared.
Yeah, correct. It's nice to try to meet with, I wouldn't say every single homeowner, but it's nice to meet with the majority of your homeowners. These people are going to be, passing off checks of $10,000 plus, or it just depends what you're doing for them. But they feel a little bit more comfortable when you actually have spoken to them.
And this is just some background. This is as if you did not sell the job. So you didn't meet them until you saw them on the calendar.
Yeah, and that's
So-
just the way our structure is. So
yeah. So from a this is all coming from a standpoint of like you have not met this customer, you've not been to their property, but they're on the schedule. So you're coming
Correct.
from a kind of an introduction standpoint.
just getting to know the people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that 1 week prior time frame, you can really hammer out everything. You've already talked to the customer on the phone about, hey, did you move this, or did you demo your deck? You agreed with your salesperson that you would do that prior. Did you move your landscaping? Have you prepared for any of these things?
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to them on the phone, they say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that this weekend. And then you go out there the week prior and you say, hey, still haven't done this stuff. What's going on? And I'll get it this weekend. And then when you get started the day of, if they're like, well, I just didn't have the time or something, you can pretty easily say, hey, look, we can help you out as much as we can.
Yeah.
We can haul this deck off for you for X amount of dollars, sign on the dotted line. But I gave you 2 weeks to kind of be prepared for the upcoming process here.
And put the ball in their court. And that seems like the theme of kind of at the essence of being a project manager. You're kind of just always trying to keep the ball out of your court, in the customer's court. Like, hey, I've given them all the information they need in terms of being prepared for the job as a homeowner, like move your car out of the garage, like you said, move your planters or your deck or pavers or what have you. And then that just alleviates more of what's in your, what's on your notebook to think about.
You almost have to be annoying.
Yeah.
That's what a project coordinator is, I feel like, when you're dealing with the customers.
Yeah. So you're just bordering on like TMI, too much information. Just like, hey, we're going to be there tomorrow, probably between 7 and 8. And they're like, yeah, you were here today at that time. So I assumed that. And you're like, yeah, I just thought I'd let you know, just bordering on repetitive.
But it works.
Yeah.
If you were to look at Mattingly Concrete, all right, and take a look at the past 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, when we actually started to pump out, hey, why don't you review our company? Why don't you take a look at things? You can see that the actual positive responses have grown exponentially. So I feel like the more that you are actually keeping in tune with the people that are paying you their money, the better they're going to have an outlook on your company.
Yeah, the better their response is going to be. So, and it seems like a lot of the reviews also have been more about the process and less about the product, which is an interesting turn of events. All of a sudden you have people complimenting the communication instead of the sealer. It's like
It's very uncommon to
it is
have good communication. It sounds
in
like
the contractor world. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
something that I always say is that Mattingly separates itself. Anybody can go out and pour concrete. Anybody, could give it a shot. And 9 times out of the 10, the result's going to look about the same. What we do to actually separate ourselves is try to involve so much CRM, the amount of people that make contact with them. We're responsive. I mean, I think we're not really excelling at, yes, we've got a quality product and we will continue to put out a quality product, but we're trying to excel more at customer service than.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, we're putting a lot. We're putting 60% of our eggs in the customer service basket and 40% into the craft. I mean, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or, there's
professionalism from start to finish. Pretty much.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a space for the creative niche of, maybe doing the ultra decorative, as I would consider it, or there's a lot of artisans in this industry that that craft word, that maybe that's 60% of their basket. But for most of us who are out here, servicing, one day it could be replacing an ADA ramp for a school, and the next week you're doing a driveway, and the week after that you're doing a patio. Kind of a mix of things. Some of it's not so glamorous, but some of it is. You tend to find yourself concentrating more on the process and the customer service aspect, I guess. So you're not always trying to turn every job into a decorative job, but almost metaphorically you're trying to make it that experience for somebody that they'll never forget. And we've had comments on that, so I think that plays well into your role, I guess, huh?
I'd say so, yeah.
And that's so you've got how many 2 project managers helping you also, or coordinators?
I've got 2 coordinators. There's 3 of us that do a lot of the customer communication and everything like that, but I consider basically, my team to be the people that are still out there doing the work as well. I mean, they're dealing with customers too. We've got people that oversee our actual pouring crews. I'd call it a pouring coordinator. So let's call it 5 people that are really key components of trying to make sure that the process runs well.
Yeah. So five real key players in the process, and then very, very closely after that, you have crew leaders that are also interacting with customers, and you have some standards that you set for that communication.
Minimal correspondence with customers, and I think that sometimes those crew leaders would rather not do any correspondence at all. So
not a requirement, but if you see them, maybe mention this. That might be some helpful way of
that or just smile. You know, that's probably a little bit more important. Is just making sure that you don't look like your typical concrete person.
You don't want to spit chew on their front doormat and ring the doorbell and tell them you've got a problem.
Correct.
First thing in the morning. That's always good. Yeah, you want to prevent that imagery. That that can get out of hand quick. So in the advent of Ring doorbells, I think there's a funny story about when Ring doorbells became really popular 4 or 5 years ago, and they really started taking off. And I say Ring doorbells, it doesn't have to be Ring, it could be any, but we've got more and more customers that are recording the on-site, what's happening.
Yeah, whether they're home or not, they can just chime in whenever they want. So pretty much have to assume somebody's always watching and listening.
You're right. So I mean, I'm sure this isn't a battle that we've fought alone. I'm sure that there's contractors everywhere in the world, but specifically in America, where you have these things are on the back of the house, the front of the house, the side of the house. What have you had to do to kind of tailor your program to keep that in mind? What could you share a story that kind of taught you a lesson, and then how you implemented some changes for that?
I mean, we could, and I guess for starters, just the disclaimer that, obviously a good company makes things right. So we can break down a story where somebody had a camera on the back of their home, and the result of the recording that came from it, but this shouldn't be a negative reflection on Mattingly Concrete by any means.
Just a disclaimer: you like to control the environment as a project manager with the customer, right? So you want to be the one that brings an issue to them rather than the other way around. Right?
Exactly. So in this particular instance, we had poured a patio. The patio looked fine, all the pictures that we got, and there was nothing really that was brought to anybody's attention. We had a particular crew go out that touched up the final processes of things, did the antiquing color and the sealer, and still nothing brought to our attention or anything along the lines like that. And hey, we give our customer a call and say, we're finished up. Let's discuss the next process here. I'd be happy to meet with you and go over any questions. I think the person left them just a voicemail that particular day.
So this is before a few other processes were implemented to, some checks and balances and
Correct.
some, verification type items. But yeah, go on.
The I recall it actually. I was the only coordinator at that particular time, and I was in class I was in college, and I got a video that just came to me, and I'm playing this video, and I see our guys in the back of the home working on the patio, and I don't know what's going on. I can't hear anything, and then the customer sends me a message that says, "Listen."
Oh, great!
I step out, and I'm listening to this.
So it has audio.
Correct. Yeah, and I hear our guys, and man, this patio's got way too much fall. You want the water to run off, but you don't want them to have to put a pencil on the table, and it rolls off the patio itself. And
so they're just nonchalantly kind of conversing about the job, and maybe you hadn't even seen it yet, so that opportunity wasn't, the timing wasn't great.
In essence, and I mean, I guess I encourage anybody that is whatever company you work for, if you see something, then say something. Those guys, instead of, or even if they did have the conversation there on their time at the person's home, a simple message, hey, you might want to be prepared. This thing's got X amount of inches of fall within a 15-foot span of space. They could have given me a little bit of a heads up instead of just keeping it to themselves. So,
but either way, it was talked about. It was on the Ring camera. That was one instance where a customer finds something out before you had an opportunity to bring it up to them.
Correct, and then
then they kind of get a skewed image of you, the company, everything. Who's trying to hide this from me, and why are these people back here snickering about my new patio?
Exactly, and it created a little bit of a back and forth. I tried to defend the company at the time. No, nothing's wrong. Those guys, they just know how to take care of the coloring in the ceiling. They have nothing to do with anything else. Well, then you start to learn what people's backgrounds are. This particular customer did road work. They did road work with the state of Indiana and I think Illinois too. So they already knew things, and they hadn't seen the patio either. They were out of town and just heard this recording of our guys, and we all met with this particular customer the following day. And again, like I gave the disclaimer initially, it was very obvious to see that the patio did have too much slope, and we tore it out that same day and replaced it. Customer was happy. So, but yeah, there's been many different instances of things like that. So what we basically did is just tell our people that you gotta, and I think this goes for anything. It doesn't matter if it's
a camera or not. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's cameras everywhere now. So you could be in the grocery store and you should be careful about what it is that you're actually going to talk about. But yes, and when you're representing a company, whatever it might be, concrete, or you could work at Kroger or anything like that, you just gotta be professional, especially when you're on people's properties. Just watch what you say, watch the cuss words, things like that.
You can't be stocking the milk and talking to your girlfriend on the phone at the same time saying, this milk smells spoiled, and then somebody on the other side of the aisle is like, what did he just say? He had a Kroger uniform on. He's saying the milk sounds spoiled or whatnot, and vulgarity, you bring that up, like vulgar language or actions, what have you. I think, and again, this isn't just us. I know it's not, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. But I mean, we had an employee that relieved himself in the backyard of somebody's place. It's like you step around the corner and you take a little tinkle, whatever. It's like you shouldn't do that. Does it happen in the real world? Probably a couple times a year from anybody. But you're in the moment. You kind of, in our industry, there's 100,000 excuses you can use to do that. But when the customer is a police officer and has the cameras all around the house, then you're in real trouble. So that was another experience we had. It's like, so we really had to implement some, like Nate just alluded to, you have to act like somebody's watching and pretty much standing over your shoulder even if they're not there.
Yeah.
which is that's how anybody with high character would act anyways, right? You're not going to say something about somebody that you wouldn't say to them, or and not everybody has that same value, I suppose. But
And people continue, like other companies, I mean, whether you hire someone to build you a fence or do some landscaping, you're going to see that behavior no matter what, even if with all the Ring camera, all that phenomena. But, that's a good way to differentiate yourself.
It is.
Just
I mean, as long as
professionalism from
you
in the
you
field.
could
And
put yourself in customers' shoes and things like that, and everybody's a little different. If anybody at this table is having a fence get put in at their home, and you look out the window and see somebody peeing on the side of your house, and you're probably gonna say, "Oh, okay, whatever." But if somebody that works at, say, Eli Lilly or Roush or anything like that sees that, they're going to think it's the most disgusting thing in the world. You never know what your customers are like, so you just have to pin that in your guys' brain, or your crew's, your company's brain, to just say, hey, you don't know what Mr. and Mrs. so-and-so do. So just make sure that you're treating every job site exactly the same. We encourage our guys to utilize truck space and things like that. It is nice when you have large boxes that they can get into in the back of the trucks, but
and they don't need to, and even just when you go up to ring the doorbell to ask them, hey, or just introduce yourself. That a lot of times there's a camera on the doorbell, so we've had to train ourselves. Don't pick your nose. Don't. Gone are the days that you can stand there at the door waiting on somebody to come, and while you're picking your nose and getting.
take your sunglasses off.
Yeah, take your sunglasses off when you talk to people. That's a good point. I mean, just the courtesy of giving somebody your attention is more than just.
Yeah, and just because you're on their property, even if they know they're expecting you, just making yourself aware.
Yeah, don't smoke a cigarette in front of them. There's a lot of smokers out there in the world still. I know there's kind of tick some people off that are listening, but again, common courtesy. You got to assume that whoever you're talking to is probably not into the same things you are. So turn down the Metallica before you pull into the driveway. Don't even pull into the driveway. We've leaked oil on some spots where you don't really want to leak oil on, and
That's a good point. No matter how new your car is,
just park out on the street.
Yeah, because you never know.
Yeah. Use the sidewalk. Don't cut through the yard. Just little things that, can speak volumes before you've even spoken. Some people are just looking out the window, just ready to judge the character of how you're walking. What's your stride like? And that's the hard truth of it.
Have you had to let a lot of people go and with those circumstances? Just
unprofessionalism.
Yeah.
Quite a few over the course of 6 years. Yeah. I mean, I've in particular had to let, I don't know, I would say 15 people go, but we are blessed that we have such a good crew, or I'm sorry, a good subset of people that actually are geared towards staying with us and everything like that. But yeah, I've let quite a few people go over the period of time.
And you're involved in, directly hiring, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So what are some of the most important things you would look for when you were hiring somebody?
I mean, it's tough because, like I said, coaching, or when you start to get to know individuals, you again want to gear things towards specific subsets of people.
Coachable and teachable, huh?
Yeah. So I guess when you're looking for new hires and things like that, it depends what you're looking for. And we're going to talk strictly about field people. Reliability and accountability, go hand in hand. Those are the two most important things in any sort of construction industry. I've only been in one, specific aspect of construction, which is concrete, and it's residential concrete at that. But you can hear how hard it is to get people, how difficult it is to maintain people right now. You know, the workforce is hard to come by, but reliability is definitely the most important thing, I would say. And that kind of just goes back to when you initially reach out to somebody, you really got to grill them. You know, you've really got to ask them hard questions that makes them say, "Oh, you know, how am I going to answer this?" You know,
But at the same time, I think, going with accountability and reliability, dependability, showing up, you would rather hire somebody with zero experience but high accountability versus somebody with 2 PhDs and who shows up twice a week and then leaves early.
yeah, I mean, your typical run of the mill construction person might not really be that reliable. That's definitely true, but then again, that's not all construction people. So I mean, it's tough, but you got to just make contact with people and then really ask them difficult questions that they have to almost struggle to find the answers to.
Have you dealt with a lot of people on job sites in particular, like field guys, who just terrible attitude, just kind of bringing everyone down? And, how would you combat that, or at least,
Well, that depends. I mean, there's a difference between having a bad day and having a horrible attitude. You know, you got to give people the benefit of the doubt. They might have had a rough night, you know, had a difficult conversation with somebody in their family, or didn't get a lot of sleep because they had a child that was up. So you got to kind of dissect the situation. If somebody's continuing to do that, then that's when a conversation needs to be brought up. But if you pull somebody to the side and this is their first attempt or their first offense or something like that, hey, you know, what's going on with you? Well, you know, I just had a bit of an issue going on, or got family troubles right now. Well, you know, let's try to move past that right now. You're kind of bringing the morale of the job site down. You don't want your particular crew to view you in that light. So
tell them that you're hearing them, you're caring, but
we got to get past this.
yeah,
get past it for that particular day. You don't want to say, "Hey, get over it," you know, or something.
And like you said, if it's a
that.
one day thing, people have bad days. We all do.
But yes, I've dealt with a lot of people that have had just continuous attitudes every day that they come in. It's just the world's against me, or anything like that, or nothing's going the way that they want, and we've let people go for
repetitive natures of those types. Yeah,
for that particular reason. I mean, I think the two things that Mattingly really stresses and tries to make a point of is if you come in with a good attitude, you come in every single day, you know, and you're on time and reliable, and you don't make up excuses for where you are every morning, and you're not bringing your vices to work, you're not coming in hungover, or you're not coming in on any influenced, you know, anything like that, there's no reason that you're going to lose a job. I mean, as long as you're trying.
Yeah.
You know, people, we're here to provide a skill set. We've got the guys that we're looking for, people that want to learn different things. That we look for people that have these certain traits. You know, they don't have to actually know anything about the industry, but their drive to want to learn about different things can make them excel. So
yeah. Most recently took a person who was in a desk position previous to coming to work for us. I think this past spring, pretty interesting case. Had a guy come work for us that was previously in CAD drawing. So he had that basic understanding of angles and geometry and things like that, which I think played well for him. And you might know who I'm talking about, Nate, but just, you know, he came in, he was not used to a physical labor job, but, you know, he showed up on time for his interview. He, you know, presented himself well and, you know, was willing to get his hands dirty, so to say. I think we asked that question. You know, Nate was sure to ask some tough questions. We could provide some specific examples, but that guy ended up excelling, you know, based on just being open to learning new things, getting his hands dirty. He like transformed himself in a year, it seems like.
yes. And to jump a little bit back in time with that, something that I will point out is, anybody that works in any construction industry that is let's call them a veteran, or if you learned and you've been in this industry for a while, there is a strong tendency for the people that are actually supposed to train these people to just give up so quickly. The particular person that you're describing, and then there's been more people too that have actually been able to at least try to keep learning and learning. I mean, the thing is, you take that veteran and you could pull them to the side. You give them, hey, here's somebody new. They don't know anything about the industry, but they want to learn. They're going to be reliable. Let's teach them how to do what you do. Come on, let's get them in the field and ultimately get everything that's in your head out to this particular guy, so that one day when you're long gone, he can fill the void. But these particular veterans, they just, you know what? If he doesn't work in a week, then you need to let him go. And it's, how long did it? You got to kind of say, hey, put your shoes, or put yourself in their shoes. How long did it take you to learn the industry back in whenever? If you learned it 10 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever. I mean, didn't take you just 1 week. Did the particular person that was supposed to be your mentor give you just 1 week?
Yeah.
So I think that's just something that I would like to stress to anybody that's looking for new talent. If you're not willing to give somebody the benefit of the doubt that's reliable and actually try to work with them, and you're just continuing to turn people over after 1 week until you try to find somebody that might have a little bit of knowledge, you're ruining the industry.
Yeah. You can't train accountability.
No,
you can't train a personality. So if I think if what you're saying, if somebody matches your criteria in terms of reliability, accountability, personality, they take responsibility for themselves and their actions, you should probably be willing to invest a little bit in the technical training.
All those traits, the accountability, the reliability, those are all their skill sets that people are born with. I mean, they mold them over time.
Yeah.
But
that's where it's not your job.
Exactly.
Your job stops at this person's shoes being tied. I'm not going to tell this person how to tie their shoes.
No.
But if they're tied and they're tight and they're early and they're on time and they're smiling, time to go ahead and start teaching.
Yeah. We have some of that, and I'm working hard at I think that's always going to be a constant battle. And heck, who knows, the people that are getting trained right now, in 10 years, when we bring somebody on for them, they might be saying, hey, this person's not good after a week. And it's like, oh, hey, well, how much time did I give you when you were filling the void? And hopefully they think about that a little bit, I guess. But that's just one word of encouragement to anybody out there is give people some time, especially if they are coming in daily. So
how does... so as we kind of wind down the conversation on that topic, how does it ever get easier, or, does it kind of fall back into the old saying, you just get better? I mean, the daily struggle of operating a concrete business, a residential one at that, does it get easier, or do you see, are you seeing and reaping some reward from the systems that you're trying to put together that make the job a little more bearable? I mean, just the little wins, like, could you describe how you've seen something come to fruition that's, given you the renewed energy to start working on another process?
So I wouldn't say that things get easier. It's always going to be difficult. And you just have to continue to try to, the biggest thing is internal improvement. And you got to try to manifest that in your people too. So if I come in as the director of operations or whatever title it is that comes to me in 10 years, 30 years, whatever company that it is that I'm at, if I'm not looking for the best in myself, or I'm not trying to say, hey, where could I improve on, or man, I really screwed that up, then all of the people below, or all the people that follow suit, they're going to have the same thoughts as well. So, yeah, I mean, things get easier the more that you influence new ways of doing things. But I think that you always have to have that thought in the back of your head. Where did I screw up? Where could things have gone better? You could have a particular project or a particular week that went really smooth. But in the role that I have to sit back and look at that particular week or that job and say, how could I make that better? You always have to improve everything.
Yeah.
And then again, manifest that in all your people so that they're looking to improve themselves, and then
lead by example.
Exactly.
And that makes leadership, a little more bearable too, because it's hard to lead with, finger pointing.
Correct.
In
but
essence,
things have gotten easier. I will say that the addition of our CRM, our customer relationship management that we use, has made things a lot easier as far as
lightening the load.
Correct. Yeah. But it doesn't belittle or make every other little aspect of the particular positions that we have within our company mean nothing.
Yeah.
So that's it though. You just got to strive for yourself to be improving at every point that you can find.
That's a good way to kind of wrap us up here. Just constantly self-reflecting and staying in a perpetual state of self-reflection, internal, looking inward for improvement rather than outward, trying to pass blame or bring up improvements for other people before you do yourself, and I think you've done a good job at that, Nate, and that's why we had you here today to kind of explain a little bit of your method, but when you start a conversation off with, hey, here's where we could have done better, that's a good word, we, you've been good at that. That concludes our Cretelife podcast episode 3. Thanks for being here today, Nate.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Phil, our co-host, Phil Laraway. Thank you for being here for another episode.
Nate, thanks a lot for being here.
Absolutely. With that, everybody, enjoy your day. Thanks for tuning in to the Flatwork Kings podcast, where support, learn, and grow are mainstays of our mission. Learn more at flatworkkings.com or in our Facebook group at Flatwork Kings.